Alright guys, so in today's video we are going to be talking once again about Days Gone, but apparently how it is still continuing to sell very well, and we don't have official sales numbers from Sony yet, but I do have something here that does point to I guess a rough estimate of how much Days Gone has sold so far, and it is apparently the 8th best-selling game of 2019, just behind Red Dead Redemption 2, which is impressive. It may not sound impressive to some people at first, but when you put a couple things together, you realize the competition it's had to go up against this year. Not only that, but you realize it's a exclusive game for PS4, and it's also a new IP. You start to realize that that's pretty impressive. It really is. And then on top of that, I also wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about how on the top 10 selling games for the PS4, not this year, not last year, but of all time, there's actually 2 exclusive games on that list, and I really needed to take some time to focus in on that and kind of go over why this is significant, why that matters, and why it's important to pay attention to high quality games like this, and also just kind of focus in on the idea that exclusive games, when they're done right, can be extremely successful for a platform and can do a really good job at actually selling consoles. So yeah, it says Days Gone has become the 8th best-selling game in 2019, ahead of multi-platform games like Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, proving it is a major success for Sony. Days Gone launched with lukewarm review scores, but that didn't manage to stop the sales of the game. It had solid legs not just in North America, but also in most of the major countries of the world, including Japan and the UK. As a result, it seems to have done well for itself despite being a new IP that didn't get critical praise. Days Gone is from Sony Bend Studio, and it was launched on April 26th exclusively for the PS4. It launched within a couple of days of Mortal Kombat 11, which is a multi-platform release, and currently the best-selling game in 2019 according to the NPD Group. NPD analyst Matt Piscatella has confirmed that Days Gone was not only able to repeat its performance from April despite that being the launch month, it still held on to the number 2 spot on the sales chart for May, just behind Mortal Kombat 11. This is despite the fact that Days Gone is an exclusive game for the PlayStation 4. Both Days Gone and Mortal Kombat 11 were successful, while Rage 2 appears to have a rather soft launch in May for Bethesda Softworks. Sony hasn't disclosed any sales figures for Days Gone, while they were quick to do the same for God of War and Marvel Spider-Man. In such a case, it is hard to estimate how much the game has sold so far, but the position it carries on the sales chart for this year does make it a success for Sony. So speaking to that for just a second, focusing on how many units exactly it sold, I came across a tweet from someone who goes by the name Benji Sales on Twitter, and this individual clearly has access to this information, and this is what he had to say. After looking at Days Gone numbers from NPD, UK, Japan, as well as a few other markets I've seen data for, I'm very confident Days Gone has sold through to consumers well over 2 million units, and may be approaching 3 million, not shipped, but sold through. And then on top of that, he follows that up by saying, frankly, it could be even higher. I have no idea, but it's without a doubt well over 2 million sold through. So there you go. I mean, we don't have exact numbers. Maybe Sony is waiting until the sold through number hits 3 million exactly, or maybe they want to wait for another milestone to be hit before they announce the official numbers, but that's pretty impressive, I have to tell you, for a new IP from a studio like Sony Bend, selling through well over, as he puts here, well over 2 million is very, very good. And it's not necessarily surprising to me, because I kind of knew that, like, even though this game didn't get the type of critical reception that maybe it should have gotten, at least in my opinion, I knew that people were going to support it, because there was a lot of people out there who were playing this game, and if you listen to the actual, people who enjoy playing video games and know the difference between what makes a game good and solid versus what can actually ruin a gaming experience, most people are saying that Days Gone is actually really good, and it does a lot of things right, and as a game it just has a lot of heart. And clearly the sales are reflective of that, you know what I mean? And it makes me happy, honestly. I'm glad to see that Days Gone is selling well, and I've talked at any opportunity I have here about this game and how well it's selling, because it deserves it. I played Days Gone, I platinumed it, I enjoyed my time with it, and there's just so much potential here. I want to see what Sony Bend can do with a follow-up, maybe next generation on the PS5, the things that they can improve upon and really just kind of expand the world and this universe that they created in Days Gone, because I think it's honestly one of the coolest I've played in a long time. There's a lot of interesting stuff there, even though there's some people who just want to write it off as it being like generic or whatever. I don't know. I played through the game. I've seen it, and it is interesting. Are there some things that are a little generic? Of course, but that pretty much goes with any game you play. There's always going to be certain things and certain tropes, but either way, I really enjoyed it, and I'm just glad to see it selling so well. I'm going to be eagerly awaiting when Sony decides it wants to give us those official sales numbers, because I'm going to be very interested to see exactly how many units it sold. And I have to say, I don't think it's necessarily a bad sign that Sony isn't giving its sales numbers when it was quick to do so with Spider-Man and God of War. The reason why I say that is because what we're going to talk about right here, the top 10 best-selling PlayStation 4 games of all time, believe it or not, those two games I just named, Spider-Man and God of War, are on this list. And that's kind of crazy if you think about it, especially considering that both of these games came out just last year in 2018, and they came out not too far apart from one another. They definitely had enough breathing room, but still, looking at this list, at number 1, we have Grand Theft Auto 5, number 2, Red Dead Redemption 2, number 3, Call of Duty World War II, number 4, Call of Duty Black Ops 4, number 5, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, number 6, Marvel's Spider-Man, number 7, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, 8, God of War, 9, NBA 2K18, and 10 is Battlefield 1. So, again, this is the top 10 selling games of all time on PS4, and there are still people who actually try to come out here and say things like, oh, Spider-Man selling 10 million units within just a couple months or something. That's actually not good. That's not impressive when there's about 95 million PS4s out there. These people don't know what they're talking about. They really don't. They don't understand the measurement of success and the measurement of failure. These are people who just don't want to see games that are high quality, Spider-Man and God of War, high quality single player games, I should add. These are people who just don't want to accept that these are games that people love. These are games that people are going out there and buying PlayStation 4 consoles to play because they're that good. And I don't know why it's hard for people to accept that or believe that, or why so many people still want to try to make it seem like, I remember Uncharted 4 selling about 16 million units so far. There's people who are actually out here trying to make it sound like that's not successful. Believe me, these people have no clue what they're talking about, and you shouldn't listen to anything they have to say because they're just wrong. These numbers, the fact that Sony managed to have 2 of their exclusive titles as the top 10 best-selling games of all time, up there with games like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead, a bunch of Call of Duty games, that is extremely, extremely impressive, and it just really speaks to the strength of the exclusive game. And there's no doubt in my mind that looking at how well these games sold, you bet these games moved a lot of units for Sony. These games sold a lot of consoles, and we still have Death Stranding coming up. We still have The Last of Us Part 2. We still have Ghost of Tsushima. So it's crazy, right? It makes me wonder, what other games are going to end up on this list alongside Spider-Man and God of War. I think Death Stranding maybe has the potential to do so. But honestly, I think if any game does, it's going to be The Last of Us Part 2. By the time we reach the end of this generation and we look at this list again, I think The Last of Us Part 2 could certainly surpass Spider-Man. Now, I don't know how many units exactly these other games like GTA 5 and Red Dead and Call of Duty World War II, I don't know how many units exactly these games sold. I wouldn't expect a PS4 exclusive to ever reach number 1. That just doesn't make sense because they're going up against multi-platform titles here. Not that really makes a difference, but, it's just a game like Grand Theft Auto 5, games like Red Dead, games like Call of Duty. They just have such a mass appeal. It's hard for games that are exclusive to a platform to go toe-to-toe. You know what I'm saying? But I think The Last of Us Part 2 will end up on this list. I think The Last of Us Part 2 is going to help move even more units. I know it's a downtime right now, and apparently hardware sales for both Sony and Microsoft are not looking too great. But we're going to see. We're going to see how it all pans out by the time we reach the end of this generation. I just wanted to take some time to talk about this with you guys because you know what? I still see people trying to make it sound like exclusive games don't matter, or that the ratios we see when of PS4 exclusives, the ratio we see of how they're selling compared to how many units are out there. People trying to make it sound like it's not successful, and no, you have no idea what you're talking about. We're talking about the list of top 10 best-selling games of all time, and you have 2 Sony exclusives on there, and there's a reason for that. It's because people do care. People want these high-quality games. People want single-player games. They're going to support them, and this is just further proof of that. So, yeah, that does it for the video, guys. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. How do you feel about Days Gone being the 8th best-selling game of this year so far when you consider the competition it's went up against and you consider it's a new IP? Are you impressed by that? Are you happy by that? How do you feel about it apparently selling well over 2 million copies? I will be interested to see what you guys have to say. Also, let me know your thoughts on both Spider-Man and God of War being on the top 10 best-selling PS4 games of all time. Be sure to leave the video a like if you did enjoy it. Really helps it out. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.